Good morning, everyone. Uh, we are already in July. June was really busy month from the session and the show ceremony and 20th anniversary and stepping down and up things. So I'm sure you worked hard and tired. But there is another one that is a precept retreat and Jukai ceremony. That is end of summer practice period at Sanshinji. I made the plan of the practice period to study Buddhist teaching and concentrate on Zazen and the precept. Those are three basic studies. So in May, we have a Genzoe to study Dogen's Dharma. And in June, we have 5-day session. We just sit without anything else. And in July, that is the end of the practice period, we have a chance to study the precept. Precept is the guideline or guidance of our day-to-day practice, led by Buddha's or Buddha Dharma, Buddha's teaching, and also our Zazen practice. So precept retreat is also very important, and some people wish to receive the precept. That is my idea of practice period means. Anyway, on Sundays, I continue to talk on this text, Opening the Hand of Thought, the chapter 8 of this book. I'm sorry, but I don't use this book today. Chapter 8 is based on transcription of Uchiyama Roshi's last lecture, last teisho at Antaiji. That was on Sunday in June 29, 1975. And the day after he gave this lecture, he left Antaiji. So I thought, this section, this chapter of Opening the Hand of Thought is very suitable for me to talk before I retire. But unfortunately, I couldn't. So I'm still working on this chapter. And so I cannot stop giving talk until I finish this text. Maybe it takes another 1 or 2 years because I don't give Sunday talk so often anymore because, Shohaku and other people give also Dharma talk on Sundays. So I can be lazy. Anyway, today I start to talk on section 2 of this chapter 8. That is Zazen in page 149 if you have this book. Unfortunately, the older version, the page number is different, but chapter 8, section 2. The title of the this section is Zazen is our truest and most venerable teacher. So Uchiyama Roshi talks about Zazen as the most truest and most venerable teacher. In Japanese, he's talking about Zazen is Honzon. and Shoshi. Honzon in Japanese Buddhism is a main Buddha enshrined in the so-called Hondo. Hondo is a main hall where the main Buddha is enshrined on the altar. At Sanshinji, I don't know which is main. Manjushri is for Zendo, and Shakyamuni is for Hondo. So probably we should say Honzon of Sanshinji is Shakyamuni Buddha. But he said Honzon at Antaiji is Zazen. So this is kind of interesting saying. And another word, Shoshi, is literally true teacher. So he's saying our Zazen practice is the most, Honzon literally means most venerable, truly venerable, truly respected, and true teacher. This is a kind of a unique saying because usually Honzon is Buddha and Shoshi is a living teacher as a human being. But he said, our Zazen is Honzon and our Zazen is true teacher. So I'd like, this is very unique saying. Probably Uchiyama Roshi was the first person who said such a thing. So I'd like to talk about what true teacher. I don't think I need to talk about Honzon, but what is true teacher is important, I think, to understand what we are doing here. And Uchiyama Roshi's conclusion is Zazen, but his saying is a kind of twisting of what true teacher commonly understood in Soto Zen tradition. And this is important to understand Sawaki Roshi and of course Dogen Zenji. So I start with Sawaki Kodo Roshi. Kodo Sawaki Roshi is Uchiyama Roshi's teacher, and he is very well-known Soto Zen master in 20th century. He was called homeless Kodo because he didn't have temple, his own temple. So he was always traveling to teach. He had, not only in the temples, but he stayed at lay people's homes to give teisho, and also Zazenkai give Zazen. Of course, he was a teacher at the official monasteries also. Anyway, but he was a very unique person. He, as a public education, he only graduated the elementary school. He didn't go to higher school because his family was poor, and his actually his real parent died when he was very young, so he was adopted, and his step parents are not so good people and poor. His stepfather was a gambler. Anyway, he didn't like the circumstance he was raised. So when he was 16, he escaped from his family and went to Eiheiji. Eiheiji was a main monastery of Soto Zen founded by Dogen Zenji. But because he was very young, he didn't understand the system of Buddhism, of course. He thought when he visited Eiheiji, he was ordained as a priest, but he found it not possible because Eiheiji or other monasteries are the place to educate priests. That means before enter such official monastery, they need to be ordained by someone. They need to have teacher. And so he tried to find a teacher around Eiheiji, but he couldn't. So from Eiheiji, he walked to Kyushu. It took him for few months. And next year, when he was 17, he was ordained by Kosho Sawada. When he was 17, and he stayed there for about 2 years. And when he was 19, so during these 2 years, he was trained the very basic thing as a priest to do, make prostration or how to chant sutras, and so that kind of things. And when he was 19, he went to a local monastery named Entsuji. In Hyogo Prefecture. That temple is not so far from current location of Antaiji. Anyway, he didn't like this monastery, and people in that monastery didn't like him. I mean, for him, the priest, the training monks there was very quiet, and they are kind of a good pupil, good boys. And for them, Sawaki Roshi was like a wild animal. So the abbot of this temple didn't like him. There's no time to talk about that story in detail, but there were, Sawaki Roshi met a priest whose name was Hueoka Ryoun Hueoka. He was the abbot of nearby, not so near, but a temple in northern Kyoto prefecture. He practiced with the famous great master Bokusan Nishiari. Nishiari Bokusan is one of the most important modern Soto Zen master who became the abbot of Sojiji. And his teisho, recorded teisho on Shobo Genzo, is still a very important text to study Shobo Genzo even today. Anyway, this person, Hueoka Ryoun, practiced with Nishiari Bokusan for 20 years. He was not a disciple of Nishiari Zenji, but he practiced many years. And he was a kind of opposite personality from Sawaki Roshi. He was very quiet, gentle, and physically weak. Sawaki Roshi was a very strong, physically strong and mentally tough person. Anyway, but somehow this person liked Sawaki Roshi. At that time he was 19. And Sawaki Roshi also somehow respected him. So this person asked the abbot of Entsuji to let him live with him at his temple. So he started to practice with this person, even though as a restoration he was still at Entsuji. And later Sawaki Roshi said, this person, Fueoka Ryōun, was one of the most important teachers in his life. He said, when he was working at, because he couldn't be ordained at Eiheiji, he stayed there as a lay worker. And when he stayed at Eiheiji, whenever he saw monks practice Zazen, and he was also taught about how to sit, he felt Zazen is very sacred and spiritual. And the famous story was when he went to some temples to help their big ceremonies. After the big event is done, they had a day off. So all the monks went out to enjoy the free time. But Sawaki Roshi, he was 17 or 18. He didn't know what to do because he never had free time in his lifetime. Anyway, so he was sitting in an empty room, and there were, kind of old women who are working, helping the temple big event in the kitchen or other places. They are working to clean up all the necessary things. And one old woman entered that room. He was sitting. He was still a lay person. And when the old lady saw Sawaki Roshi was sitting, she was astonished and made 3 prostrations to his Zazen. And that was very important experience for Sawaki Roshi. And at the time he thought, I don't know what Zazen is, but this is really important. And he made his mind to practice Zazen rest of his life, even though he didn't know anything about Buddhism. And 2 years later, Ryōun Fueoka was the first person who could teach what Zazen is. He gave lectures only to Sawaki Roshi because he didn't have any student or disciples at his temple. And the first text this person, Fueoka Roshi, gave to Sawaki Roshi was Gakudo Yojinshu. Maybe I don't need to write kanji. Gakudo Yojinshu is part of my translation of Gakudo Yojinshu is part of this book, Heart of Zen, Practice Without Gaining Mind. This is a collection of my translation of 3 texts. First is this Gakudo Yojinshu. In my translation, Gakudo Yojinshu is points to watch in practicing the way. This is a collection of 10 short essays about to practice. Dogen wrote this text around soon after he established Koshoji. in 1233, he established Koshoji, and in that year, he wrote Shobo Genzo, Genjo Koan, and Makahanya Haramitsu. And the next 5 years, he didn't like anything part of Shobo Genzo collection. But he wrote more basic, more practical writings. Tenzo Kyokun was one of them. Tenzo Kyokun is instruction for the cook. And during that time, he wrote this collection of independent essays named Gakudo Yojinshu. I think this is what he expected, after he founded his own monastery, people came to study or practice with him. He had some expectation that those new people come to practice with him, understand these 10 things. So this is really important for the beginners. Since then until today, Gakudo Yojinshu is considered as one of the basic texts. Even before we study Shobu Genzo, we have to study Gakudo Yojinshu. And because at that time, Saki Roshi didn't know anything about Buddhism or Dogen's teachings, Okumura Roshi gave lectures on Gakudo Yojinshu. And Saki Roshi later said, the most important thing Okumura Roshi taught him that determines the rest of his life is the teaching about Zazen. Even before that, before studying any Buddhist teachings, he is determined to practice Zazen, and Zazen is the most important. And as a kind of a common idea about Zazen practice is Satori or enlightenment, attain some kind of spiritual attainment. So naturally, he wanted to be enlightened. He wanted to have enlightenment experience. But Okumura Roshi taught him just sitting. And just sitting is really just sitting. In order to just sit, we don't need the knowledge about Buddhist teaching. But in order to really just sit, we need to understand what Buddha taught. Otherwise, we interpret this just sitting within our expectation, our self-centered mind. So in order to just sit, what this just sit means, to do so, he said, we need to thoroughly study Buddha's teaching, Buddhist teachings. And this is really important for him. That's why, when he studied with this person, he was 19. And in Japan at that time, even ordained monk need to become a soldier. So when he became 20, he was drafted. So next 7 years, he was a soldier. And during these 7 years, the war between Russia and Japan happened. So of course, he couldn't practice or study anything for 7 years. Actually, he was almost killed during the war. Anyway, when he finished and returned to the normal life, what he did was to study Buddhist teaching. But he didn't go to school because he didn't have money. So what he did was he he studied Yogacara teaching at Horyuji. Horyuji is in Nara, one of the oldest Buddhist temple in Japan, established in I think 6th century. Right after 6, I think so. 6, so yeah. And this is the main temple of a school named Hossoshu. Hossoshu, the main teaching of Hossoshu is Yogacara teaching. And so at Horyuji, as a education of this school, they teach Yogacara teachings. And same as the Zen monasteries, to study and practice at this temple was free. Of course, monks had to work for the temple, but they didn't charge, because this is education for raising or produce their tradition, keep their tradition. So Saoki Roshi studied Yogacara teaching here at Hossoshu for 3 years, and he completed. He went to the highest degree or stage where the monks from other schools could reach. If he wanted to go further, he had to become Hossoshu monk. So he didn't, because his mind is determined to practice Zazen, that is Dogen's teaching. Anyway, the reason before he practiced Zazen thoroughly, he decided to study Buddhist teaching was because this person's advice. Even though Saoki Roshi didn't have time to practice or study with Fueoka Ryoun, because he had to be a soldier. He remembered his teachings, so before he thoroughly practiced Zazen, he studied Yogacara teaching until he had a kind of confidence that he didn't make any misunderstanding in Buddhist teaching as a, how can I say, not in the twigs, but as a main part. And I think his teaching that in order to just sit, we need to study thoroughly study Buddhist teaching, came from, I think, Gakudo Yojinshu. What Dogen said in this short essay. Number 5 of this collection of short essays. The title of this section is To Practice Zen and Learn the Way. To practice Zen and learn the way is Sanzen. And learn the way is Gakudo. This Gakudo is part of this text. Gakudo Yojinshu means. Gakudo literally means study the way, in this case, Buddha way. So in practicing Zazen or practicing Zen teaching and studying the Buddha way, he said, one should find a true teacher. So here Dogen is discussing true teacher. In order to practice Zazen or Zen, we have to find a true teacher. That is the origin of the idea of what is true teacher. So Dogen made a definition of true teacher. And in this text, Uchiyama Roshi said, Uchiyama Roshi expressed his own very unique insight or understanding of what true teacher is, and that is different from Dogen. But to understand the difference, Uchiyama Roshi's uniqueness, first we have to understand what Dogen said and what Saiki Roshi studied. And I think this is something to do with what we are doing here. I mean, since Sanshinji was established, what I have been mainly trying to do is just sit and study the Dharma. This sitting and studying the Dharma is two main things we do at Sanshinji. That also came from what Dogen is saying from in this section of Gakudo Yojinshu. If we want to read this text, Gakudo Yojinshu, this book is free. It is published from Sotoshu Shumcho. Do we have a copies of this book?
We have some, and it's also online.
Okay.
At Sotoshu's website.
So you can check if you find this book, page, let's see, page 18, section 5. I read my print, the same English translation. First, Dogen said, we need to find a true teacher to practice the way, to practice Zen. First, he quote one ancient masters, not the masters saying. That is, an ancient sage once said, if your first aspiration is off, all your effort in practice will be in vain. This first aspiration is Hoshin. It's his name. Hot is to arouse, and Shin is mind. So arousing the mind. And this is a translation of a Sanskrit word bodhicitta, that is awakening mind. But Hoshin is an abbreviation of a little longer expression that is Shohoshin. Or Shoshin, Shoshin is a famous word in American Zen, that is beginner's mind. So Shohoshin is a first arousing bodhicitta, that is beginner's mind means. And this Shohoshin is again abbreviation of longer expression, that is Shohotsu Bodaishin. First arousing body, mind. Bodai is body, mind. So first arousing bodhicitta. So when we first because of some experience of something happened to our life, somehow we arouse bodhicitta, and we have a kind of a desire or wish to study what Buddha taught. That is the first arousing bodhicitta. And this is of course very important, but when we allow bodhicitta, we need to find a direction. Because if first step is off, goes, mistaken direction, there's no way to reach. Hotsu Bodaishi means way-seeking mind, or the mind which seeks awakening or realization. If the first step is the direction of first step is off, then we never reach awakening. So it's really important to receive right teaching when you first allowed bodhicitta. To do so, we need a true teacher. If our true kind of influence from teacher or other people is mistaken, it's really difficult to how can I say, to change. So he said, we need to be careful that when we first allowed bodhicitta, we need to find a true teacher, through introduction and also instruction. And Dogen talks about this saying by the Chinese master. He said, how true this is. The practice of the way, studying the way, depends solely upon whether your teacher is true or false. A practitioner is a piece of good timber, while a teacher is a carpenter. The beauty of a piece of fine timber will not come out without good craftsmanship. So even if we are good timber, if a good craftsman didn't work this timber, this material, then this material become something strange or useless. And he said, even warped or twisted timber manifests its own usefulness when worked on by skilled hand. Probably Saki Roshi, when he was 19, was warped timber for this person. So he thought if he didn't give a right introduction and stay that monastery, he became twisted. Such a kind of official monastery is a place to educate temple priest. So what they taught or trained is how to become a temple priest. To do so, they have to study how to chant sutras or do ceremonies. And so, because Saki Roshi didn't know anything about Buddhism, so if he thought that kind of education is Buddha, is real Zen or Buddha way, it was really twisted. So I think this person thought Saki Roshi was like warped timber. So he need good, skilled teaching to find what is real Buddha way. So it should be clear through this analogy that whether you truly attain realization or not depends upon whether your teacher is right or wrong, or genuine or false. So you need to find a true teacher. And next, he said, in Japan, there's no true teacher at all. Dogen lived in the 13th century, and as I said, Buddhism was introduced to Japan in 6th century. So Japan had already 700 years of history of Buddhism. But Dogen, this is Dogen. Dogen saying there's no true teacher at all in Japan. I think this is what he felt. You know, Dogen became a monk when he was 12 or 13 years old. And he couldn't find a true teacher. So he had to go to China. First, he was ordained at a Tendai school on Mount Hiei. And Dogen himself thought he couldn't find a true teacher at that monastery. His teachers taught you have to study and practice diligently, and to be a good, well-known teacher, then you could be a teacher of the emperor or aristocrat. So their practice, study and practice is not really to study the Buddha way, but this studying Buddhist teaching is like a method to become a famous teacher or to reach the higher stage in the hierarchy of Buddhist institution. And he didn't find any meanings to practice in that way. So that's why he left that monastery and started to practice Zen at Kenninji. But he couldn't find, he found a good teacher, whose Japanese teacher was called Myozen. But Myozen also think he need to study more. So Myozen and Dogen together went to China. And Dogen met Tendo Nyojo or Tianton Rujin, and he finally found a true teacher. So he had a very difficult experience about finding a true teacher. That is why he was making this instruction. So he says, in our country, Japan, however, a true teacher has not yet appeared. Has not yet appeared means never appeared. In the 700 of the history of Japanese Buddhism. How do we know this? And he said, by examining the writings these teachers have left. So when he read the text written by Japanese teachers, he said their teaching is just like, by reading their text, he said, this is just like judging a riverhead by checking the water downstream. So if the water in the downstream is crowded, muddy, then the source, riverhead, is also cloudy or muddy. And he explained why. He said, from ancient times, many teachers in our country have written books to train their disciples, as well as to explain these teachings to the public. However, their words were still green. I think when he gave this talk, he was around 35 years old. And he is saying, all those Japanese teachers in the history, including those great masters such as Saicho or Kukai. Saicho was the founder of Tendai school and who Kukai was a founder of Shingon School. Those are two major Buddhist schools in his time. But including those teachers, he said the word is green. Their words were still green. Their language was not yet ripe or matured. They had not yet reached the peak of the ground of learning, and had not even approached the stairs of realization. They only transmitted phrases and instructed people to chant the names of the Buddha. Day and night they counted the wealth of others, yet not even a half penny could be called their own. This is a fault of the ancients. So that means they brought a lot of Buddhist texts from China, and some Japanese masters wrote their own text also, but they taught only language, only words, and they taught only the knowledge. So those people studying in that way only is like counting the money that belonged to someone else. They didn't have any as their own. So studying only Buddhist text is like counting other people's money, like workers at the bank. They count a lot of money, but no money is their own. That is, just studying Buddhist text means. So he said some Japanese masters just taught the knowledge or theories or doctrine. And other teachers, another mistake was some taught people to pursue true enlightenment outside of the way. Outside of the mind. And others led people to desire rebirth in the Pure Land beyond this world. So those another kind of teachers just teach their disciples to do, to practice. The first one seems like Zen, and they taught their student to practice that and to attain awakening. And those teachers don't teach Buddhist teachings. They just put emphasis, just sit or just practice, or they put emphasis on belief or faith in Amitabha Buddhas without teaching the Buddhist teachings. So student didn't know why this meditation practice is important or authentic, and why the faith in Pure Land Buddhism can be true teaching of Buddha. So he found there are two groups of mistaken teachers. One is put too much emphasis on studying, and another is too much emphasis on only practice, just do it. And this just do it is still popular today, not only in America, but in Japan too. People think Zazen or Zen is just doing it. But that is not true according to Dogen. And he is talking what is a problem, those two extreme ways. He said, one might give good medicine But if the way to avoid the side effects is not shown, the medicine in effect causes sickness. So we take medicine to heal our problem, our sickness, but if we don't know the correct usage of the medicine cause another problems, another sickness. It is more harmful than taking poison. So medicine and poison can be, works in the same way. In our country, in Japan, no one has given good medicine, much less saved people from the side effect. Therefore, it is difficult to relieve the suffering of birth and sickness. How is it possible to rid the suffering of old age and death? Those are 4 kinds of sufferings in human lives, according to Shakyamuni Buddha. That is birth and sickness, being born and become sick, and old age, we are getting older and we are going to die. These are called shiku, or 4 sufferings. And what Buddha taught is how can we be released, become free from those 4 sufferings. That is the main point of Shakyamuni's teaching. But if we practice following those teachers, put too much emphasis on just understanding the teachings, or just practice without understanding. And this is entirely the teacher's fault, not the disciples. How did this happen? The teachers taught their disciples to reject the root and seek the end of the twig. End of the twig means something useful for us, something desirable in our lives, not the root of suffering, cause of suffering. And cause of suffering, according to Shakyamuni's teaching, are 3 poisonous mind. But teacher taught that teaching, but they don't teach because of understanding this. The main point, essential point of Buddhist teaching is become free from this kind of suffering, human sufferings. But they teach some kind of only knowledge or kind of a method and techniques. Before establishing their own understanding, he's talking about those teachers. Before establishing their own understanding, they acted from their egocentric mind, arbitrarily causing others to fall into false ways. So those teachers made the problems. How pitiful the teachers themselves did not understand that this was a delusion. How was it possible for disciples to distinguish right from wrong? How sad the Buddha Dharma has not yet permeated this small and remote country, means Japan, distant from the Buddha's land. And at the time, China was a big country, and everything good came from China to Japan. Japan, we studied kind of a civilization from China. But not, he's saying, not yet the true teaching of Buddha. And true teachers have not yet appeared. So basically, he said there's no hope in Japan. At this time, Dogen just started to teach. A few years, maybe a few years after he established his own monastery. And so there's only a few monks were there. So what he encouraged to those way seekers, if you aspire to learn the Supreme Buddha way, visit a teacher in faraway Song China. You should go to China. Look back to the vivid path far beyond discriminating mind. So he said, better to go to China. There's no true teacher in Japan. And finally he said, if you cannot find a true teacher, it is better not to practice. Because if we receive a wrong wrong teaching in the beginning, no matter how hard or how long we practice, it goes somewhere else. So in a sense, kind of pessimistic idea, but he's saying, I think that is what he really want to say is, now I'm trying to offer true teaching from China. Then finally, he make a definition of what is true teacher. Being a true teacher, being that a true teacher has nothing to do with age. He was still young, so it has nothing to do with age. But it is necessary to have clarified the true Dharma. Clarify the true Dharma. That it is Mei. It means brightness, and Mei is the opposition of Mumei. No brightness means ignorance. So we have to clarify, means we have to be free from ignorance and understand and see the true Dharma, true teaching of Buddha, and received verification from a true teacher. So we not only I understand true Dharma, but also if you have some understanding, your understanding should be verified by a true teacher. So here, the generation after generation tradition or lineage is important. And finally he says, a true teacher does not put primary importance on words or intellectual understanding. So we don't, this is a first kind of teachers, mistaken teachers, too much emphasis on words or teaching or theories or doctrines. He must have abilities that transcend discrimination. Actually, that Buddhist teaching is a kind of discrimination between true and false. And this is what Dogen is also doing, what is true and what is false. But true teacher, have ability that transcend discrimination and have aspiration beyond the ordinary. He has to be free from egocentric views, self-centered views, and unfettered by human sentiment. Human sentiment is joshiki. Jo is a emotion, and shiki is thinking. So jo, in our thinking, jo, emotion and thinking is always combined. Like and dislike and right and wrong are combined, and we think, we have a tendency, what we like is right, and what we don't like is wrong. This joshiki is, as a Buddhist term, I think I talked before, but that is when, object of our mind, and our mind encounters, so 5 skandha, sense organs, and 5 object of sense organs. When these two encounter, we have something happening in our mind, in our brain. That is consciousness, that is thinking. And what Buddha taught is this, from this encountering, there are 2 ways. One is a kind of emotional way, that is, encountering is soku, usually translated as touch or contact. And ju, next one is ju, that is sensation. And depending upon what kind of sensation we have attachment, like and dislike. And we take action, and we cling something good or something bad, then we take action. This clinging is called shu. And another way is to thinking, and we make a concept by depending upon what kind of sensation we have. We create concept and make judgment, good and bad. That is called prapancha. Prapancha is conceptualization and false discrimination. And both, as a both side, based on encountering with subject and object, when our body and mind encounter with other things or experience other things, what happening in our body and mind is joshiki, and we create our world or our world view, and that is what we think this is reality. So our world is produced by our joshiki, but we need, what Buddha taught is, we need to become free from this process. Become free doesn't mean we should destroy or eliminate joshiki, but it's not possible. But to become free from our joshiki, emotion and thinking, conceptual thinking, that is what we do in our Zazen, that is letting go or opening the hand of thought. Our practice is not eliminate the thinking and make our mind blank. But in our Zazen, by letting go of thought, we see what is created with our joshiki is a fiction. To see fictitious quality of what we are doing. So that is what he said. He has to be free from egocentric views and unfettered by human sentiment. His practice, true teacher's practice, corresponds to his understanding. I think this is most important expression in this section. His practice corresponds to his understanding. Original expression is gyo, ge, so, o. Gyo is practice, and ge is understanding. And so means mutual, each other. And o is respond or correspond. That means the true teacher need both practice and understanding. Practice and understanding should be always together. If we take just either side, just do it, then it might be mistaken. And if we just understand the Buddhist teachings by reading text, that is another extreme. So in a sense, for Dogen, practice and understanding are mutually or working together is his expression of middle way. Just do it is one extreme. Just understand is another extreme. Therefore, we need to practice in order to express this true Buddhist teaching. And this is what true teacher means in Dogen's teaching. So final sentence is, his practice corresponds to his understanding. This is a true teacher. So this is a definition of what true teacher is. And that is because of this teaching, Saki Roshi received from Fueoka Ryon Roshi. First, he studied Buddhist teaching at Horyuji. He studied Yogacara teaching. Oops. And after he felt now he understand the basic structure of Buddhist teaching, he returned to Dogen's practice. He became a teacher, tanto of a local monastery, but again he didn't like that monastery because of the same reason. Monks, training monk were not interested in practice. And also they are not interested in studying Buddhist teachings. They are interested in learning ceremonies. So he escaped, teacher escaped. And he asked the abbot of Horyuji, the Yogacara school, to borrow an empty, abandoned temple. And he lived there by himself and practiced Zazen. He sat Zazen all day. Of course, sometimes he went out to studies, to teach, not to practice with other teachers such as Okasotan Roshi. But while he was staying, he stayed at that temple. He was sitting all day, really, for about 2 years. And, Okasotan Roshi thought if Saki Roshi continued to practice in that way, he might die. So Okasotan Roshi asked him to become a teacher at a monastery in Kyushu, where Okaroshi was invited as the abbot, but he couldn't go, really be there, because he was president of Komazawa University. Not at that time, that was not named Komazawa, but it was called Soto Shuo Daigaku. And he also had another, he was also a Kannin, the director of Eiheiji. So he was really a busy person, so he couldn't take care of that temple. So he asked Saki Roshi to go and teach. So after, Saki Roshi thoroughly studied Buddhist teaching, he started to thoroughly practice Zazen. So Saki Roshi was really a true teacher. And Uchiyama Roshi had been practicing with Saki Roshi, with this, traditional, in traditional meaning. Saki Roshi was really a true teacher. He both had practice and understanding. And Uchiyama Roshi took advantage from such a true teacher. And he said, true teacher cannot be a human being. But our Zazen is a true teacher. So it's important to understand why Uchiyama Roshi had to say so. Well, that is what I'm sorry, it's already 11:30. I'm so sorry my talk is always too long. Any question or comment? Please.
I imagine we can assume that Dogen thought of himself as a true teacher, and yet at the same time, I think I heard you mention that he recommended to his own students to, if they wanted to find a true teacher, to go to China.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it insufficient for them to study with him?
Probably, at that time he was still a new teacher, so he didn't want to say, I am true teacher. I guess. Please.
The twist of Uchiyama's teaching. I think you just said a moment or two ago, there is no true teacher that's a human being, but Zazen is a true teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is what he is going to say in this section of his final lecture.
In the final, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next time I'm going to talk why he had to make such a twist. Okay. Yeah.
I was bowing, but I guess I can say something.
Okay.
The
Anything
question
else?
that pops in the mind is, who is Shakyamuni's true teacher? Who is Shakyamuni Buddha's true teacher?
Who's Buddha's true
Siddhartha
teacher?
Gautama. Who is his true teacher?
I don't know. In the history of Buddhism, Shakyamuni's teacher was Kashyapa Buddha. Final six of the 7 past Buddhas.
But none of them were around in the flesh interacting with Siddhartha during his lifetime.
Of course.
Right?
So
it was a
so later
cosmic telepathic transmission from distant places and times.
I think later Buddhists thought such a great teacher like Shakyamuni should not be produced automatically or naturally, but he must have teacher. So this is a fiction. So Shakyamuni was really, he practiced with two meditation teachers, and he practiced ascetic practice for 6 years. So he had two teachers, but he was not satisfied about their teaching and practice. So actually, Shakyamuni was a teacherless person. So in that sense, what Dogen said is not, historically speaking, not correct. Okay. Anything else, please?
I seem to recall in some of Dogen's writings, he talks about different kinds of awakening. And I think that I recall him saying something like an inherent awakening. Did he say things like that?
Inherent awakening is like the reality of all beings itself, and we are part of all beings. So even though no matter how much deluded our mind is, how we are is true reality. It's not a fiction, but we create a fiction within our mind. And as far as we think this fiction is reality, we are deluded. But still, including that fictitious delusion, we are not fiction. That we are deluded and living within fiction is reality. In that sense, we are. That is what I think inherent awakening means. It's not our quality of our mind. It is how we really are. Okay. Please.
Sort of related to Itoku's question. So you've been teaching in the United States for a long time now. I'm sure you've probably noticed that Americans like to think that they can kind of do anything themselves, that they don't need help, like they can just kind of do it by themselves and
That's
they can
great.
ignore everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
And of course this is, from my limited experience in Japan's very different,
Mm-hmm.
I think generally Japanese take instruction pretty well and usually just sort of more likely to do what they're told, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Dogen is saying, I think, is and I think Uchiyama Roshi too, from our Zazen, is that we really need to be open to this teaching,
Mm-hmm.
which I think sometimes for Americans is difficult. So I'm curious, like your experience as a Japanese teaching in the United States, and any advice you might have for kind of breaking through that challenge with teaching people when they have this tendency to try to be independent.
Creating one's own version of Buddhism.
Yes.
That's a problem. Well, I don't know what to do. I think American people themselves need to find how to become free from being American. In order to practice with the American people, I have to make effort to become free from Japanese identity. If I, request American people to do what we do in Japan, then I cannot live in this country. So I try to be free from my Japanese identity without losing it. So without losing American identity, you become free, try to free from your identity. I think that is very important. often we study something, in the case of Buddhism that is developed in Asia, and you American or Western people first receive or accept that tradition. So it's important to be humble and being free from ourselves. And that is a very core teaching of Buddhism. Okay? Yeah. Anything else?
I was just going to add, I think in a way it seems if we're letting go of something, it doesn't mean that that's eliminated or destroyed. It's released.
Right. So letting go is not destroy our thinking, but open our hand, not grasping, open our hand. So I cannot stop being Japanese, but I try to be free from, clinging to Japanese identity. Okay. Anyone?
In Zoom land? No.
Thank you.